And now, your host, Couch Tomato!
Hey, I'm Couch Tomato, and I'm joined by
Hulk.
Welcome to Stuff for Movie Buffs, and today we're talking
Birth of a Nation.
There we go. Before we even get into all of that, this is a sensitive topic, so like always, I want everyone out there listening, put your right hand on your heart, left hand in the air, repeat after me. Say I. Say your name.
Hulk.
Am a movie fan.
Am a movie fan.
As a movie fan.
As a movie fan.
I won't get mad.
I won't get mad.
I can't get mad.
I can't get mad.
And I'll keep my anger to myself.
And I will keep my anger to myself.
Great. This week, we changed it up a little bit. I explained last week's episode. Our schedule got thrown out of whack, mainly because we had Hurricane Matthew hit Florida. There was a movie that I really wanted to see. This week, we actually watched it this week, Hulk, and that's Birth of a Nation, right?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. It was either Birth of a Nation or was it Max Payne? Well, not Max Payne. What is that?
Max
what is
Steel.
it? Whatever. You know, so I actually text you and I was like, hey, maybe you watch one, I watch the other. And I text you immediately afterwards saying, I don't want to lose that coin toss. Let's just go watch Birth of a Nation. So we watched it. For those people out there who don't know Birth of a Nation or haven't heard the controversy surrounding the film, Hulk, do us a big favor and explain to us by giving us one of your handy dandy summaries, sir.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
All right. The Birth of a Nation. Nat Turner is an enslaved Baptist preacher who lives on a Virginia plantation owned by Samuel Turner. With rumors of insurrection in the air, a cleric convinces Samuel that Nate should sermonize to other slaves, thereby quelling any notions of an uprising. As Nate witnesses the horrific treatment of his fellow man, he realizes that he can no longer just stand by and preach. On August 21st, 1831, Turner's quest for justice and freedom leads to a violent and historic rebellion in Southampton County, the birth of a nation.
All right, that sounds good on paper. Well, is this movie good? Don't answer that. It's a rhetorical question. We'll get into it.
All right.
So, as always, Hulk, you know, I always say, if you don't have anything nice to say, I prefer that you do not say it at all. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to have anything, that you're not allowed to say anything mean. So, in the true spirit of Stuff for Movie Buffs, I want you to we're going to list 3 things that we loved about Birth of a Nation, but we'll also give you 3 things that we hated, or hate's a strong word, disliked. So I want to go first and give you my 3 likes.
All right.
Easy for me. I had more, but if I want to narrow it down to 3, Nate Parker. Pause.
Dang. Okay.
Okay, yeah. All right. I'm a huge fan. I've been a huge fan of the guy since when he was on Great Debaters. His career never really took off, but I'll get into it later. But definitely Nate Parker. Reasoning for the rebellion was fleshed out and believable. When it comes to Nat Turner, I don't know too much about his story. That's why I was anxious for them to make this movie. But I felt that sometimes when it's based on a true story, you got to put an asterisk on there. But they made it believable on the reasoning for the uprising. Yeah. And the direction. And I'm cheating on this one because I already said Nate Parker, but he was the director. This is his directorial debut, I believe. Yeah. And great job. First time at bat. So kudos to that guy. Those are my 3 likes. It sounds like I stole some of your stuff. Don't be afraid to repeat. Mm-hmm. Let me hear 3 things that you loved about Birth of a Nation.
Same thing. Nate Parker. He had a really solid performance. I also like the direction, and I'll just in depth with like the setting, how they placed everything, the characters, the costumes. It was real authentic. And I also like the pacing of the story. Like it felt real connected. It felt real fluid. So those are the 3 things that are really stood out to me.
Well, actually, those were 4, but I'll let you slide. All right, let me hear. I'm going to let you go first with some of the haterade. Give me 3 things that you disliked.
Okay. With the dislikes, it was too... It's like, I don't want to say this because I think it was too graphic to me sometimes.
You're going to get that with slave movies, though.
Yeah. That's why I don't want to really knock it for it. It was just certain parts of the screen I just had to turn away.
I did that like 18 times. I miscounted after 10. So go ahead. What else?
That was it. Like it was the other things I disliked was just nitpickies, but it was not really enough to put it as a bullet point.
That's fine. I nitpicked enough for the both of us because I really wanted to be fair and not show favoritism towards this film. And I usually, I give up and I usually give one dislike, but I tried to find 3.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't like the ending, but remember this is
okay. That's one for me as well. I didn't like the ending as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, this is based on a true story. But audiences love a happy ending, and I'm part of the audience majority where I'm like, I need to have some type of redeeming.
Yeah.
They had a redeeming factor, but the ending was just
yeah, and I think I know which part you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's based on a true story, so
that's the thing. You can't really,
Yeah, and I actually, it's a dislike, but at the end of the day, I gotta tip my hat to him because a lot of producers get in your ear and tell you, no, switch it up. I don't make up something.
Yeah, romanticize it.
Yeah.
Bring it, yeah.
And marketing for this film was wiggity. Like, I thought marketing was horrible. Like,
Very.
This film was marketed as like it was marketed like a black movie. Like if you looked at the venues they went to for the other than Good Morning America, they tried to make it an obligation for the African American community.
Yeah.
When I thought this film stood on its own like a 12 Years a Slave type deal to where
to me this was better than the 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah, same here. I didn't want to take too long to give you guys my opinion, but I thought so as well. I wasn't a huge fan of 12 Years a Slave, but also I hate montages. And this was only a 48-hour rebellion, if you know the story in that. And they montaged through some of those hours. And it was a key part where I was like, you don't need a montage over here. You actually should have gave us montages in the beginning. But let's dive right into it. Before we even talk about the film, I want to actually provide some insight on this controversy surrounding the film. So what have you heard and what do you think?
I heard there was a rape case involving him and his friend and a girl. Apparently, like, they were in college, and then, like, she was a girl. He was, like, they were dating, they were talking, whatever. And then after a night of drinks, she went back to his place. She said she was inebriated, like, she couldn't consent. But obviously, she, when she woke up the next morning, she felt some type of way about it. And then, I don't know, she pursued a case against him. It was ultimately dismissed on his part. His friend got convicted, but then it was overturned later on in appeal. And then tragically, she committed suicide, a few years later.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the suicide, it's not directly tied to what happened to her in college, so it was years after. But I don't know. A lot of people don't know how the judicial system works. Coming from someone who's been falsely accused of a crime before, you go to court, a judge or jury looks at the facts of the case, and you're innocent. If you're innocent, the case is dismissed. I mean, when you look up somebody's profile or Google images on them, it doesn't give you specifics of the case. It just says, guy was arrested. You have to look further into it to find out, okay, the case was dismissed. So we're in a country where it's like you're guilty even when proven innocent, right? So whenever it's a situation where I hear that word dismiss, I try to give them a benefit of the doubt because I would like somebody to give me that same benefit of the doubt as well. So just because I'm close to that area to where it's like, no, I've had my name thrown in the mud before. And it's like, it's not, sometimes you have to be involved or be in the courtroom. But when you hear dismissed, okay, whatever, they're innocent. But not even that. When it comes to my movies, I like to suspend my disbelief, and I almost I'm looking at the actors on camera. I'm not looking at that behind the scenes stuff. So I just, when it came to, it seemed like the conversations with this film, everyone was picking a side. If you were against them or when you were with them, I was like, let me just find out if the movie's good. So moving on to that, was the movie good?
Absolutely.
All right. So I didn't want to give my opinion right away, but I liked Birth of a Nation. I loved it. For the record, I hate movies with prisoners of war or prisoners getting tortured. That's when you talk about that squeamish stuff you had to look away for. That's every slave movie. I have a hard time watching slave movies and a hard time watching war movies and a hard time watching horror flicks. Like if it's something to where I see that gory stuff, I'm just like, I'm turning away. That's why I knew I wasn't going to medical school at a early age. But from my feedback, I felt that it worked in this film because you wanted to believe that you were in that world, and I believed it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And definitely the first hour, because Nate Parker, if you saw any of his interviews, I think he felt that he was being cheated, that the rape allegations were coming out, during the promotion of the biggest project of his career. And I wanted to see the movie. Like he said, he was kind of feeling himself when he said, nah, this movie's going to be great. And I was ready to throw some shade. And I'm like, all right, we'll see. Cause I'm in there and I'm trying to be critical. The first 30 minutes, I thought he was exaggerating. I'm like, this movie's okay. But if you were thinking Oscar, you're out of your mind. You know, I didn't feel anything in the first 20, 25 minutes. Something happened though. It was around that 35-minute mark, 40. I'm not really sure how long this movie took, but I kept hearing rumblings of Oscar nominations and I didn't believe it. I was like, liar, liar, your pants are flammable or whatever. But then there's a scene where this guy gets a Bible in his hand and it's a wrap from there. I loved the movie from that point on, and it made me respect everything that came before it. Yeah. But soon as he opens the pages of that Bible, that's when I found out, okay, that's the angle they're going to go with this story. And it worked. So we're going to get into some biblical talk. So basically, a lot of people don't notice about Hulk, but didn't you go to a Bible school or something like that?
Yes, I did.
All right. So with you being so, close to that area, how did you feel about that aspect of the film? Because basically the Bible is used as a catalyst to spark a 48-hour rebellion between slaves and slave owners. So you being a student of the good book, can you describe your emotions for the use of that angle in the film, Hulk?
Oh, it resonated with me a lot. It really got me into the film. I was able to connect with it on a deeper level because I saw how sometimes Christianity gets a bad rap, especially from our own people, because they feel like it made us passive. It made us a little, like we took too much from, our slaves, our slave masters too much. But I think the way it represented on this film, it showed like there was ways that scriptures, what I loved about his character,
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, he was like, with every verse that they're using to control us, there's about a few more where it says where God wants us to be free, and that really resonated with me. And with sometimes it's like you see it with Islam, with other religions, where people can abuse that power. And I liked how he was able to redeem it, like showing you that with scriptures, God had different purposes for his people, and I really love that. And in the way he used it throughout, it was biblically sound. And a few scenes where they were like, okay, we want you to read this verse, and you can see it like him fighting back tears because he knows like what they want him to do. They want him to try to use it to control him, but his spirit wouldn't let it. His spirit wouldn't allow him to.
And Hulk, I've seen the movie. Some people out there didn't. So to better explain what Hulk is talking about, there's a scene in the movie where basically in the South there was a drought, a famine, right? And the slaves had to work harder for less food rations because their slave owners just didn't have the money, right? So they were getting fed less because of budget cuts. And naturally, that's going to cause some type of commotion or uprising. Yeah. So what slave owners were doing, there was rumors of this black preacher. And to bring them in for morale, kind of like a pep rally, they would invite him to preach to the slaves. And basically, he was being told to preach certain sermons. So he was kind of on a leash. And the slave owners were using that to inspire the black slaves. Yeah. And he kind of was an Uncle Tom on the movie, right? He started because he was reading things that he didn't even agree with. And he was taking the Bible out of context and stuff. And this film, like, can I preach for a second? You don't mind if I preach, right? Yeah. So basically, this movie took the words out of my mouth, sir. And I'm an even bigger fan of Nate because of it. I want to believe a lot of this script was his voice. I don't know how involved he was with the script. I didn't look at who wrote it, but I would like to believe he had a lot to do with the script. When it comes to Republican versus Democrat, white versus black, cops versus minority, it has little to do with color, in my opinion. That's always been my opinion, and more to do with two types of people. There's two types of people in this world. In this world, there's the just and the unjust.
Yes.
Righteous and the unrighteous. Some people are right and some people are just dead wrong. So white people aren't necessarily the villains in this movie. And that's why I didn't like the marketing, because they kept trying to make it look like, okay, it's blacks versus whites, when realistically it's wrong versus right. Like,
yeah,
I think a lot of people out there listening to this podcast, we raise our hand. A lot of us don't agree with slavery. So if you're on that side, you're morally right, ethically right through history. So I don't know, like I just felt 12 Years a Slave. Some people came out the theater just hating white people. Some people came out the theater hating black people for hating white people. I'm like, it's not about that. It's about right and wrong. And this movie painted that, because there's the just and the unjust. And if you look at what happened, Nat was a slave and he was a happy slave at the beginning. Like he wasn't happy. I'm pretty sure he wanted a different life for himself, but he had a great relationship with his master. But so it just kind of shows you that his mind was kind of blocked to a degree where he wasn't thinking about freedom so much. What actually propelled his want for freedom had to do something. It was just a moral conflict where they said only certain people are allowed to baptize and certain people aren't. And when you open that door, it opens a floodgate for, maybe Nat, his mind was like, well, if you do that, you're probably thinking, heaven is exclusive to only a certain group of people.
Yeah.
So that actually sparked it. He's like, no, enough is enough. I could take the whippings. I could take the slavery. I could take, just the lack of food. I could take you kind of pimping me out for my, my preaching. But when there's an ethical dilemma and you're telling me certain people can't do this and certain people can, like I can't baptize a man, that's a problem. And that's when the film was like, okay, you probably deserve an Oscar now, because I felt it was powerful. And if you look at this movie, if you go in colorblind and just forget about that black-white stuff, you're going to see, wow, like I understand. Like I'm not looking at him because he's black and I'm just going to blindly agree with them, or this guy's white and I'm just going to blindly disagree. No, like the master is clearly wrong in this case. Nat, I gotta agree with you. He's right. It's not an exclusive club. So I think they painted that picture better than 12 Years a Slave, because other than Brad Pitt, everybody that was white was just naturally evil on 12 Years a Slave. Yeah. And it's just a lot of these slave movies, they do that. Like I'm pretty sure if we had a time machine, not everybody agreed with slavery. Hence the Civil War. Some people wasn't really about that life. So when you start making it like, no, these people are real and they have real conflicts, I'm like, man, bro, like I loved it. So that's what I meant. Like marketing was off, but if you go into it with that same sensitivity, like when it comes to politics, I'm same way. Like focus on, like when we look at the cultural dilemmas that face our country and the whole political debate, I'm not even going to get into that, but I could care less about skin tone, and let's just agree on what's right and what's wrong when you look at candidates. In this movie, I think it depicts that. So I don't know if Nate did that on purpose with the script, but if he did, kudos, and I'm actually looking forward to what else this guy has going on. So I was on the fence originally, and I didn't feel that this film even deserved an Oscar thought the first 15 minutes. But a couple of minutes in afterwards, I'm like, all right, I've seen worse movies nominated, but keep in mind, it's an inspiring movie, whether you believe in the gospel or not. I think, like even people who don't believe in the gospel read the good book because morally it's sound. Yeah. You know what I mean? Ethically, it's there. The principles are there. And I think you could also appreciate this film also. Like, yeah, so I mean, if it doesn't get an Oscar nomination though, it's not the end of the world. Like, keep your head up, Nate. You know what I mean? You did a great film, excuse me. And I think a lot of people will agree on me. On the site that shall not be named, I didn't really check the scores, but how's the reception?
It was like 75% both ways.
That's my rule. Like if it's over 70, if the audience puts it over 70, it's enough for me to pay for it in theaters. If not, I just gotta wait till that that Netflix queue comes around or something. So I think that's a silver lining there. So I don't know. Like I'm stealing some of your thunder, but jump in at any time. I mean,
yeah, I just really wish Fox Searchlight would have put this out like during the Oscar season. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt it came out a little too early, like around October, like last week. I felt like that was kind of like a dead type season for me.
They protected him. They protected him too, because regardless of how he feels, if he looks at it on the outside looking in, the situation looks ugly. Like, I mean, you were the crime that was involved, and I don't think it's right how he was attacked, but some of that, like when you're in the middle of that, you got to understand why things are happening. Why is it? It's a popular story. It's a trending topic, and also thumbs up to him for not even kind of stooping down to the media's level and answering questions. But as a studio, you got to protect your artist, and I think this film did better. It was an optimal decision to put it out when they did, because Oscar wise, there's already like red tape around it because of the the backstory surrounding Nate. But still, like I've seen other films come out around this time frame and still get that Oscar push. They could always push another soft release in theaters, like what they try to do. Like they'll put
it for like that 1 week or two at the end of December.
I don't think the studio's going to do that though. I already think they have another horse that they're backing for Oscar season. But I don't know. Like for this to be his first directorial debut, you rarely get an Oscar attention for your first time in bat. But I think he warrants attention from the media. Period. Like the next project he comes out with, I think he silenced some spectators. Like, okay, this boy's about making movies. Let's just focus on the art and less about the personal stuff.
Yeah, because what I noticed with his acting skills, he has a lot of subtlety. It's like sometimes it's not the things that he necessarily says, but it's just how he reacts to certain things. Like, because I remember, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there was a scene where he picked up a toy that the white boy dropped, and he was just giving it back to him, and then the father just out of nowhere and just started hitting him. And it was funny because as he was hitting him, I just saw him like just taking it very meagerly, as with a lot of meekness. And then on that last one, you just see him just flip that switch to like, okay, that's the last time you're going to do that to me. And I just like that switch. It was just little scenes like that where he could just switch off where, he's just being a good guy, very meek, very mellow, but deep down inside, he still has like a fire. He still has a passion that is below the surface. And he was just able to carry that throughout each scene where it's just like so believable. Like, yo, like this guy has something in him. Like if you know what I'm saying? If he can only take so much, and you just knew that was going to explode. You know
my favorite actor, Hope?
Who?
You could guess.
Denzel?
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Okay.
Like sometimes I'm not supposed to see his movies in theaters, but I support him blindly. He could do no wrong in my eyes. And in my Mount Rushmore, it only has 3 folks. It's him, Leo, and Jake. And all of them
that's pretty much me too.
Yeah, and they stay getting bucked by Oscars. It's gonna soon. We already block out the site that shall not be named. But if Oscar keep bucking people, I'm gonna have to block them out too on this show.
Yeah, the Academy needs to wake up.
So, but they're not there yet because But I would say like when Great Debaters came out, wasn't a historical film. It wasn't all that. But in the film, I was. Around that time frame, I kept looking for Denzel to pass the torch to somebody. Yeah. And Nate was on my list. It was around that time. If you go on IMDb's, like Terrence Howard was in every movie, and it's like Hollywood thought I remember that. He was like the black guy or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was around 2008, 2009, 7-ish. Like it was around that.
2007. It was Iron Man time. It's like whenever it was a black role, like they would be like, just get Terrence to do it. So I really look for Nate to, kind of like take that, that torch. It never happened. I liked him in Red Tails, but Red Tails wasn't a good movie, so I almost jumped off the ship when he did that movie with that plane movie. It was like Passenger 57 Part 2. You know what I'm talking about?
It's blanking on me.
It's don't even look it up because I don't want you to do that to yourself. But it was a movie with the. It was a movie with him and whatever. Like it was bad, and I almost jumped ship. Like, wow, you suck. It was nonstop. That's what it was.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, nonetheless, when they were trying to cast for Black Panther, he was like number 4 on my list of actors that I wanted to see get the role. It didn't happen. I had Chadwick Boseman on my list too, and he ended up getting it, and he did a great job. So I think I'm glad that he's actually taking these steps to really, I don't know, I think more people are going to start seeing what I saw in him years ago. So that's a kudos and a thumbs up. Now with this film, they had you talked about some of those scary scenes or whatever that are going to disturb people. I don't want to, spoil anything, but what was it? 12 Years a Slave did a scene like that too, where it's like, I'm not rewinding that back. Yeah. This movie did it like 4 times. Yeah. And I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't watch it because I turned. I was like, I'm not watching that. But yeah, wow, that's just disgusting. Like there's a force feeding scene. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you see the movie, you're going to want to leave the theater when they force feed somebody. I'm not even going to explain what happens. Just remember force feed. Oh, that's what Couch talked about. Yeah. Then there's the battle itself was just gruesome. It was on some Game of Thrones type stuff, like where, so usually directors suck at filming action, but he actually had some experience, like not experience, but it looked like he had experience when he was filming the action scenes. Cause I'm like, okay, this actually works. That's gruesome. Also, when the slaves get, like when they get punished, it's nasty every time. Like something happens to his wife. I didn't know Gabrielle Union was in this movie. I don't think she has any lines. No. But still, like her scene was powerful. So I'm like, okay, so I like it. I would urge you guys to see it. If you can't make it out to theaters, I would say make it out to theaters because what's coming out right now, you got like a couple of weeks before Doctor Strange hits. And prior to that, like if you're going to go watch that movie, Max Steel, feel free. But if it's good, I haven't seen it. So let me not judge a movie before I see it. But I'm probably not going to see it. That's why I'm judging it. Whoops. But I think with what's out in theaters right now, this is definitely a must see. So we've given praise. Let's talk about some stuff that sucked. Because you had some hates. You had a hate. And I had 2. Like, once again, hate's a strong word. I'll give you some dislikes. But you had 1 dislike going to it. And you also kind of piggybacked off my feedback with the ending. So why was the ending an issue for you?
Okay, I don't want to,
and don't spoil it.
But I just wanted, like you said, it was a true story. So it's like I can't really hate on it too much. It'll be a dislike definitely. I just wanted more of a connection, more of like I don't know, just something with the last scene where it's just. It kind of like stayed with you just a little longer.
It stayed with me.
Yeah, the movie still stayed with me. I just wanted to get in more with like the last few scenes. Like I wanted to connect with it just a little more. But I guess with Parker's take on it, like he just wanted, I guess, to play it more straightforward, which I can't really knock him for that.
When you and I went and looked up Nat's story, like whether you're looking on Wikipedia. Biographies or it's an ugly ending. There's no way you could actually make it pretty or make it Hollywood. Yeah. So I've given the film praise, and this is like a nitpick, but a lot of people, and I'm trying to, I always try to speak for the listeners. A lot of people will have an issue with the ending. I didn't necessarily have an issue with it. I just brought it up because I'm like, you know what? I dislike that they did that because now it's only gonna make the movie less mainstream. So but
I don't want to go too deep on it because that's his choice. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like it really is a nitpick.
People usually let the studios punk you. Like you saw what happened with Fantastic Four. Like now you gonna get these people. You gonna make Johnny Black. Like they always like put a fist to your face and tell you what to do. Nat was like, no, I'm not having it. I'm actually gonna stay true to the story. So it's a pro. But realize when you take a friend to this movie, don't make it a date night. Number one, it's not gonna you won't end well. But they're gonna be like, I didn't like it, and just be understanding when they say they didn't like it because the ending it's like it's not a happy ending. But at the end of the day, if you look at it big picture, it is. But if you're looking at it with a small scope, you're gonna be like, well, that sucks. But it works. And another thing, the part that got me is when Nat starts preaching or whatever. I think that's a highlight of the movie, like when the Uncle Thomas phase.
Yeah.
Because like I always say, and you know, like how I do 24 Reasons, this is that. The only time I've ever seen them use religion or hope or faith as the power that governs the world is in the Book of Eli. I like Book of Eli too. Shout out to Denzel. Because the villain in that movie realized it's not money that makes the world go round, it's hope. So if you control hope, you control the people. They did that in this movie too. And it's a creative form of currency. Like, nah, we gonna make the slaves do what we want because we control their hope. So that part was just creative, and I want to give a shout out to the film for that. But nonetheless, that's all I had to say about it. I definitely think it's awesome. I'm not gonna reveal where it falls on my list of best movies to come out because I'm always a prisoner of the moment, and I really need to take some time away. But it's edging closer to that top because after the summer season came out, I wasn't shocked by anything that came out. I didn't fall in love with a lot of the movies that came out. So I wouldn't be surprised if this enters my top 5 with movies at the end of the year. But definitely, I say it's a must see. Hulk, it sounds like you agree. Am I right or wrong?
Definitely right.
All right, there we go. So guys, it's about that time. Thanks for joining us today. Before you leave, if you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or SoundCloud or wherever you go for your podcast. Do not let this be the last time we hear from you or you hear from us. Support the show by giving us a rating and a review on iTunes. It would really mean a lot, guys. Also, join us next week. Check out the show notes on where to find us weekly. It's Couch Tomato Films on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Couch Tomato Film on Twitter. Last but not least, peace.